It's terrible. You're going to hate it. It's going to be great. Um, and
Yeah.
and then we'll just go into it. You know, obviously, I know what you want to talk about with your show. Obviously, we want to talk about your extensive history in TV and such. And then we'll just see what happens. We'll talk about food, all things we all like, bagels.
Ah,
All right, Nikki, you ready?
Ready.
Uneducated, unfiltered, unhinged. This is the Mangina Dialogues. We at it again with your host Nick Scopes and the Gregolicious. You know how we do, cause you know we keeping it gangster and silly. Unplugged like a full swung titty. About get jitty, cause you know we down to the nitty and the gritty. And we make shit sound so damn pretty. Yeah, cause this unhinged comedy. And right now you're in the mix. So get ready, cause we about to get it poppin'. And we ain't stopping. Uneducated, unfiltered, unhinged. This the man.
I
Hello.
love that.
Right? It's not bad.
Who did that for you? That's awesome.
Oh, I have a pocket full of puppets.
It's very cool.
Yes, dude. She likes it. Oh, my
Of
God.
course. What do you think?
That other voice you guys are hearing is Madeleine Smithberg, all the way from Seattle. A beautiful
Seattle
place.
in the house.
But a real New Yorker at heart.
Yeah.
Real New Yorker forever. You can take the girl out of New York, but you cannot take that New Yorker out. And I've tried everything.
Tried surgery.
I tried
it all.
surgery. I tried OxyClean. I tried acid. No. I'm so proud of
I don't think that's the cure for anything.
it was very misguided. No. Once and forever and always. But I do enjoy hiking. I moved to Seattle and suddenly you have to start hiking. Yeah. Whereas in New York, you just walk. You're going someplace and you get there by using your legs. Whereas here at people like drive somewhere and then take a really, really, really long walk. And at the beginning, I thought it was pointless. Now I kind of gotten into it. You see some pretty things. It's a nice way to spend an afternoon.
See a lot of leaves. A lot of hipsters, right?
There are a lot of hipsters. There are a lot of people that work for technology companies, and it's very strange because they're brilliant and they're making a lot of money.
They're 12.
There's no sort of like real world experience. I used to think this actually, quite honestly, when I was working at Letterman, about the writers who were in the Writers Guild that would come out of Harvard, do an internship, and then just go right into the Writers Guild, and they would fly first. And I just thought, I don't think it's good to be flying in first class when you're 23. I just don't recommend it as an arc.
Everything's downhill from there.
Yeah, it just makes you like a really out of touch person that doesn't know anything about the real world. And I feel that way a little bit about a lot of the people that live here. But there's really great people. You have to dig for them.
What brought you to Seattle from New York after
your
whole life?
I have a very, you men are going to love it. I have a very romantic love story, which is my heart was broken by a man named Sam Packard in New York in 1986. He's over here. And he found me on Facebook. And 34 years later, we just got married on March 17th.
Wow. Congratulations.
March 14th. Yeah. But we kind of like reconnected. It took us like 7 years to actually reconnect. And then I was working in New York. I was running the studio on National Geographic Explorer 3 years ago. And he came to visit me. And when he left, he said, "Why don't you move to Seattle?" And I said, "Sure." And then I realized I have never been there.
Well, I guess Sam is quite a catch to get
He's the
that
best.
and not ever have been there before.
Yeah, no, he's the best. And so I moved here and did a pivot, like a third act pivot.
Right.
And you kind of know that I have this background in television. Worked for Letterman for a long time. Created the Daily Show with Liz Winstead. Ran it for 7 years. Blah blah.
What's the Daily Show?
never
You
heard
might
of
enjoy it.
Is it funny or something?
Yeah, no, it pretends it's the news.
Nick has a funny story for you about that, by the way. Nick,
Okay.
Yeah. So
Go.
this is, I was excited. Like, I was going through your resume and stuff. And, your producer, you worked on Letterman. And I thought, like, oh, yeah, and the Daily Show, too. And then I saw you created it. And I was like, holy shit, she created this thing? And so I'm looking. And I'm looking through it. I'm like, this is incredible. And when Jon Stewart, I only remember Jon Stewart. I knew Craig Kilborn, I believe, was first, right? And
Yes.
I only remember Jon Stewart. So when he came on in '99, I was 11 years old.
Oh my God, I feel old.
That's not why I said that. But I didn't watch the news, when you're a kid. But I watched the Daily Show religiously as an 11-year-old. I mean, until Jon Stewart left, that was my source of news until I got out of college.
No,
Like,
it is.
it really was. Like I had no time for the real news. I was like, this is boring and like this is just whatever. I need something to be funny and entertaining. And Jon Stewart is also, and so is Trevor Noah, brilliant guys. So I was like, this is so basically you started me. That was my first news program that I've ever watched. Sorry, it's better than most stuff's out today. So you did a good job.
I have a son who's 22. He's in college right now in California. And he was the same way. And one time I was trying to get him to come have dinner. And he said, Ma, I'm watching The Daily Show. And I thought, oh, no.
What have I created?
What have I created? Couldn't he be reading a newspaper? But I always feel like, well, first of all, it was Liz Winstead and I that created it together, but she left early on, and I continued for 7 years, and was sort of a very pivotal in hiring Stephen Colbert and Steve Carell, Rocca, Lewis Black, at Helms. Anyway, but I forgot my train of thought.
That's all right. You created the Daily Show. You can do whatever the hell you want, Madeleine.
I'm allowed to, but I'm telling you a good story and I can't remember what it is. Oh. So after the 2000 election, the Daily Show kind of emerged because there were 34 days where we didn't have a president. And then the Supreme Court, put George W. Bush in there. But during that time, the Daily Show kind of emerged as a funny show on Comedy Central about the news, turned into an actual news source, and would continue to be a news source, especially for college students. So I've always felt, and you can agree or disagree with this, that I can lie down now. Like, I feel like it's, it changed the way that college students get news. I'm going to go take a nap. Does anyone have some laurels I can use as a pillow? Like, it's a really huge accomplishment. And I never, ever lose sight of how amazing an opportunity it was that we took and turned into something great. We didn't have to do a pilot. We had a year to play in the beginning and figure out what we were. And that just does not happen anymore.
Yeah, I don't think it's just, I mean, obviously I know, I am a little older than Nick by a lot more than a little. And
you want to say how old? No? Okay.
No, it's fine. And I remember when it came on, and it's funny because I actually saw the Jon Stewart show on MTV.
I produced that too.
Yeah, of course. And I was, I lived in New York City at the time and went to a whole bunch of tapings of that show.
Oh yeah.
And the best one ever was with Anna Nicole Smith. It was so funny.
Where he did the one woman show.
I don't remember. I just remember being very funny, and then the band James was on.
Okay, yeah. So he did a fake one woman show.
Maybe that was it.
It was Anna Nicole Smith, a one woman show, and it was John in drag dressed up as Anna Nicole Smith.
I gotta go find
this.
this.
Such a good band. We had the best music.
Yeah, no, I mean, and so obviously that's where I first got familiar with Jon Stewart, from being on MTV all those, those couple of years, those few years. And then when he went on to the, you guys created The Daily Show, watched that forever. But I think it's not just college kids that, were attracted to that show. I think it was people that wanted a lighter take on the world, right? And at the time, you didn't have all this cable news nonstop, and it wasn't in your face. So it was a broader audience than MTV, but sort of in the same kind of tone, just expanded for someone a little bit older that's not watching TRL or whatever, the top 20 countdown.
I agree. And what had happened at the beginning and how we kind of stumbled upon Let's Pretend We're News was at the time we were launching, and just for the record, it was Craig Kilborn. John didn't come on for 2.5 years. But we were dancing around it, and it was you went to bed one day and you woke up and there were 5 24-hour news channels. That's when Fox News was born, CNN started, MSNBC, CNBC, and then over in network television, it was this thing where comedy was failing, and quote unquote.
Yeah.
And so NBC was putting Dateline NBC on 5 nights a week, and so we always said that Stone Phillips deserved a created by credit because we studied that guy.
Right.
We studied his walk and talk. We studied the furrowed brow. We studied the nodding and all the camera turns. And that was sort of led us on this path to be okay, these guys are not behaving well. And it stopped being about the news. It's become about them, and they're weaving themselves into the story. And it's really inappropriate. Oh my God, what if we pretend we're them? And everybody it was there were literally fake light bulbs in the room hanging from a non-existent ceiling. And we realized that we had cracked the nut, and that was the sort of gigantic game changer. And then as things went on, the more we doubled down on that, we're serious. But what we said was, the more serious we pretend to be, the sillier we actually can be.
Yeah.
As long as we're, we have that Stone Phillips swagger.
Yeah.
We used to say we can go to crazy town.
Right.
Colbert was the king of that too. He was so good at that. Oh my God.
It was like watching, Yo-Yo Ma practice in your dorm room. It was just, he was amazing.
Yeah.
Just a maestro. And then Carell came on and took him a minute. And once he hit it, it was magical. I used to go into the edit bays, and I would make the producers, there'd be funny clips. So one time, Steve Carell, we had sent him to Los Angeles, and he was in Griffith Park, which has a lot of steep hills, and he was interviewing George Takei. I can't even remember what the story was, but we were always making fun of different nuances of television news. So right now he was making fun of the walk and talk, where you hold your mic and you look really seriously and you just stay with the camera as you're walking. But the producer, who was Stuart Bailey, put him on a really steep hill.
Oh no.
So he's got the mic cube and his eyes are locked into the camera, and he's doing his walk and talk, whatever it was. And the bottom half of his body was going nuts. His legs were running away from him. They were zero. And I made Stuart Bailey show me that raw footage about 20 times. And every time he showed it to me, I laughed so hard that I cried. And that's when you got a good piece of tape.
So when you were on the Letterman show, what was your role there? Your role was a producer and talent coordinator. So
I was the human interest person.
Right.
From 86 to 92. That's not stupid human tricks,
Right.
not stupid pet tricks. It's actual guest segments that are real human beings that have something about what they do that has comedic potential, but that they are not aware of said comedic potential. So, you know, kind of the highlight of my career for me personally was I did Border Collies herding sheep, which was something I'd found at the Texas State Fair, and we brought it into the studio. And during the rehearsal, the sheep went into Live at 5 while Sue Simmons was live.
It was the greatest show.
I mean, it was just unbelievable. And then we brought it back for the 10th anniversary show, and I got to do it in Radio City Music Hall, and we heard these amazing dogs herded the sheep off the stage, down a ramp, out into the lobby, and into a waiting taxi that was taking them ostensibly to the airport. And it was just a surreal experience. One of my famous segments was the monkey in the dress that hated David Letterman. We had gone to Vegas, and I'd found this act, but we didn't put it on the shows in Vegas, and I brought it home, and it was like this really large Eastern European woman, and she had a Rhesus monkey and a baboon, and they were dressed for a tea party. And she was in a muumuu. And during rehearsal, my boss Morty was like, "This is terrible. There's no demo here." And I was just trust. I have a feeling. Well, that monkey in the dress just hated Dave and spent the entire segment lunging at him, but in a dress. And Dave was so tangibly terrified that it's some of the most entertaining. Do yourselves a favor and look it up, because there were very few times when Dave relinquished the controls to anyone, much less a tiny monkey dressed for a tea party.
So that was pre and CBS move.
Yeah, I was only at NBC. My last day was Johnny Carson's last day, and the reason that I left was I started booking all the chefs. And I was producing all the cooking demos, and I was getting private cooking lessons from Julia Child and Danielle Boulou and David Boulay and Emerald Lagasse, and it was just Paul Prudhomme. It was crazy. And I had always been obsessed with food. My parents took me to Europe when I was 12, and I just started going through cookbooks and doing every single recipe. And I have woken up since 1972, which dates me, but it's okay. Planning what I'm going to cook for dinner every day of my life. I'm not saying it's a good thing. It's kind of a burden, but yet there it is. And so I was doing all the cooking segments, and I had a partner who was also a foodie, and she persuaded me to leave, and we would start a production company. We did, called Half Baked Productions. And the idea was we would produce funny content about food. But we shot a pilot. The pilot ended up on the desk of Eileen Katz, who was running original programming for MTV. She had Jon Stewart in the basement. They wanted to do a late night talk show. She saw that I'd worked at Letterman, and the rest is, as we say, it's history. We do say that, don't we? So I got veered away from cooking and food, and then did the Jon Stewart Show, The Daily Show. Stayed at The Daily Show 7 years. In the middle of there, I adopted my son when he was 2 days old. And after years of just like a very real struggle to become a mom. And at a certain point one day, I woke up and I go, wait, I went through all of that expensive and probably dangerous and very uncomfortable stuff to be a mom. None of it worked. I've adopted my son. And now he's 5, and I've missed everything. And so I retired.
Got you.
I retired and moved to LA, and then ended up not retiring.
I was going to say, looking at all the shows and pilots you've done, I'm curious when the retirement happens.
It was literally about 3 weeks. I was getting 90-minute massages by a massage therapist that New York Magazine had crowned the best massage therapist in New York 3 times a week. I was going to kids' parties. It snowed. I bought a sled. I met him outside his school. We went sledding in Riverside Drive. And then I was like, okay, what now? Like, And then this guy, Garth Anseer, who had been at Fox, who was now the chairman of the WB, was doing a show with Steve Harvey. And he called me up and he goes, "This is your people at Letterman," and an entire show. And that just, I moved to LA. I had never thought I would move to LA, but I went for the pilot and it was April. And by 3 weeks into the thing, I looked around at a giant bougainvillea and I said, "Wait a minute, we can live here." And I realized that the whole LA sucks thing was, other than the bagels, which I agree with you guys, it was a giant publicity stunt engineered by Angelinos to keep New Yorkers off the 405, like very specific. So I sold my co-op, bought a house with a pool, the whole thing, raised my kid in LA. He will always be, although he's a Yankee fan, he will probably always be a Los Angeles resident, and didn't regret it at all. And but then somewhere along there, Sam came in and went back to New York. Went back to New York a couple of times for jobs. And then when the kid finally went to college and I was in New York, but that was ending, and I had given up my place in LA, and Sam said, "Why don't you move to Seattle?" That's when I came here. And when I got to Seattle, I'm going to tell you something shocking. There's not a lot of TV production here.
No. Video games, though. There's a lot of video game people.
There's a lot of video games of which I know nothing. And there are a lot of like corporate videos for Microsoft employees, but it was nothing like what, and so I didn't know what to do. And I had this really dark, the sun is out and everything's great, but then on like October 12th, the sun goes away and it won't come back again till April. Oof. And Sam was going to work and I was just hearing rain fall on the roof. And I was like, what have I done? And he got me for Christmas, something called Knife Skills. It was a cooking class where they teach you how to cut an onion and hold it. And I figured I needed that training. So I go to the Knife Skills class. And at the end of the class, the teacher recruits me. He says, "Have you ever taught cooking? I run a cooking school in Seattle. We do corporate team building for all tech companies. You have a great personality. You love food." And a year later, I was a friggin' chef.
Wow.
They threw me in and there were a lot of burns. There were some cuts.
Nice stuff. Learn it. Nice.
Yeah.
That is probably that's a class everyone should take who wants to learn.
I agree. First of all, you can save a lot of time.
Yeah.
Just knowing the proper technique, but it also takes a lot of practice. Like some of the people I work with, everyone I work with has been like 25, 15, all worked on the line, culinary school, they're caterers. And then there's me, TV producer who likes to cook. And every one of our sessions is a competition. The first year was gnarly, but I persevered and I became Chef Madeleine. And I started winning competitions, and I got the jacket that said embroidered Chef Madeleine, which made it official. And I got shoes that are really ugly and probably on the Croc spectrum, but I was a chef. And then this silly virus came.
Right.
And guess what stopped first? Corporate team building with cooking. Like,
yeah.
And so once again, I found, luckily it wasn't raining, but once again, I found myself lost and not knowing what to do. And then I had an epiphany. And I said, you know what? I've produced cooking segments. I've produced other people. I've made so many people famous doing comedy. Sam, get the camera. We're making pasta. And that's how my YouTube channel, Matt in the Kitchen, was born.
And I've been watching those videos. I like them.
Fun, right?
They're
I
fun.
try to make it not too polished. I mean, I'm getting more and more polished, but the response has been insane. And people are sending me their versions of the recipe. And I have some people that have cooked every single one that I've made. And right now I'm making a website, and my son is helping me do social media promotion.
That's cute.
He's, college student. And but it's Matt in the Kitchen. Go to YouTube, subscribe.
It takes
what?
is it's funny and it's tasty.
Exactly. Oh my God, the food is delicious.
What I like about it is that it's relatively simple. Like it's not like these crazy complicated, I'll sit and put on, I don't know, on Saturday morning, or now every day is Saturday, but whatever, a cooking show, and I'll get stuck on it for a while, and I'm like, that looks delicious, but there's no way I'm going to be able to make that 7-layer parfait in 37 minutes. Right.
No.
So it's like relatively useless besides,
It's
an
just
advertisement for that.
porn. I mean, it's
exactly, it's food porn. But what
important.
yours is that, like, I'm like, I could make that cannoli bean recipe.
Yes, you can, and you should. It's really delicious. And that is really what people are responding to. They say, we love that you don't have that great a kitchen. I'm like, yeah.
You're like, thank you, I guess.
But that I really do try to make it accessible. And I think if I had a target audience, it's people that want to do more than they feel comfortable doing, or don't feel comfortable enough to do what they want to do, and trying to take really simple ideas, but that can have incredibly delicious outcomes, and maybe combining things that you might not have thought. And I also try to just make them fun. I try to make it like I'm hanging out with the people and I'm talking to them, and things could go wrong. We did Sam and I did there. I've joined this food group called Quarantine Culinary. It's out of Florida, and they have like 8,000 members, and they asked me to live cook.
That's cool.
And so I was like, this sounds great. And the guy said, yeah, no problem. When it comes to the time, you just go live on Facebook. I'm going to steal your feed and put it on the site. So we never tested it. And the first 5 minutes of the video, I'm sideways, I'm upside down, Sam's on camera, Sam's thumb is on camera, I'm yelling, and I was dying, and I wanted to take it down. And then the comments started coming up, and people said, that was so real.
And I'm hungry.
You're gonna stick it out. It worked out fine once it was done.
Now, Madeleine, I always ask people that love to cook, because I've been doing it more now just because obviously got plenty of time. So I've been doing a little bit more cooking, but I always ask people that love to cook, if someone was like, oh, you like to cook? All right, what's like one meal you would make for someone to like prove your skills? Like, what's your go-to meal?
Okay, well, it's a very specific thing, and it would be pasta. We can use spaghetti. I would use peachy, which is a Tuscan, very fat, ropey pasta, and I would do it with clams, lemon zest, shallots, garlic, white wine, and finish it with botarga, which is caviar, but it's dried, and we discovered it in Sardinia, and you use a cheese grater, and you like grate this caviar on your finished product. And I would put my spaghetti alla vongole con botarga up against anything you've ever had in any restaurant in your life.
I need that now. Now I'm hungry.
I'm trying to carbs, and that's going to kill the whole thing.
Well, that's the problem. I'm trying to, but so every once in a while, like once a week, we allow ourselves pasta, just because otherwise, what's the point?
So when are you going to make that on the show?
The what?
When are you going to make that on Mad in the Kitchen?
It's coming. It's actually coming. I don't want to do pasta next. I want to. Everyone's been clamoring so boring for vegetarian.
Right.
And I actually got sent by this really cool spice company called Burlap and Barrel that go all around the world and work with local producers and farmers and import the best spices on the planet. So I want to do something that can really showcase their spices. So it doesn't sound good, but I promise it will be. I'm going to make the next one is a lentil soup.
Oh, that's good.
With a lot of spices, and I'm going to make it with butternut squash and probably spinach and carrots, maybe some parsnips. And so it's going to be like a delicious soup that you can have for dinner that you can just one day a week not eat meat, like with the cannellini beans.
Yep.
And then after that, I think I'm going to have to do the spaghetti alle vongole.
Jonesing that right now. So how often are you dropping the new segments?
Well, I was trying to do once a week, and that just seemed to be too hectic. And the whole thing has taken on a real life of its own. It's going to be every 2 weeks, just to give me the time to really plan them, shoot them, and then market them properly. Because what's happening is, if I drop them at once a week, I'm already into production on the next one. I'm not supporting the one that I just dropped the way that I need to, and I've realized that this is really time consuming.
Yeah.
Like, it's just going through Instagram and liking every person that's ever posted about food and then tagging them.
Yeah, I know.
Post, but it takes just like hours. So I'm getting my son to do some of that. But I'm in the middle of cutting a sizzle. So I want to introduce people to the channel that haven't seen it. So it's called A Taste of Matt in the Kitchen. And it's basically a montage of me saying, mitts, tongs, mitts, Caesars. Oh my God. And so it's like pulling out my catchphrases.
You did get excited for the tongs. I loved that when I was watching the poor. You were like, these. It's like, she's really pumped about these things.
Yeah, no, I'm really excited. And the idea is eventually to, get enough of a footprint that I can sell my own tongs and mitts and dish towels and Caesars and, turn Matt in the Kitchen into a little, empire. But for now, it's just, I'm learning and it's just fun. And I'm flexing a new muscle. And if it hadn't happened, if I hadn't tried it, I can't imagine where I'd be emotionally right now, because Sam and I had planned a huge wedding in Mexico for March 21st, and that left. And then like a day later, my second career that I pivoted to, the career you pivot to can't evaporate, but it did. And so I found myself, just once again, like, what am I doing? And I keep on having to write scripts for myself. But luckily, I seem to have some kind of instinct that kind of tells me what I have to do, and off I go. But I hope you'll tell everybody you know about Matt in the Kitchen, and I hope they'll all subscribe and make my food.
We'll make sure we do that. So before we go, I'm just kind of curious, with all the people you've worked with, right, through the years since you started with Letterman and The Daily Show and all these other amazing productions and pilots and stuff you've done, like, do you still keep in touch with those people, like a lot of them, or as you've transitioned careers, you've just transitioned relationships?
No. I have, like, for example, 2 days ago, there was a Letterman reunion, and there were like 65 people on there. We had a Zoom chat, but it actually wasn't chaotic because everyone were like TV people, so we kind of auto-produced it. And
it was very well done.
It was pretty great. And and I have some friends from The Daily Show, not as many as I wish, but a lot.
Yeah.
I have friends. I keep friends from everywhere I've been.
Yeah.
I collect them, and I, treasure the experiences that we've had together.
Yeah, I'm sure. I mean, they're all, every one of them are individually amazing in themselves.
Yeah.
So listen, we know you got to run. Really appreciate your time and talking to us
a lot. Thank you.
And
it's been so fun.
Food.
Yeah, you're great.
So I was like, what am I going to eat for dinner? Now I'm going to figure it out and be happy. And so thank you very much. We'll definitely look to talk to you again and wish you the best.
Sure. It's been really fun, you guys. Taste of home, a taste of home. Thank you for having me on.
Absolutely.
Take care.
Keep in touch.
Will do. Thanks. You too.
Bye.